By early April of 1945, Nazi Germany was no longer a nation at war, it was a nation in collapse. Cities lay broken, roads were crowded with refugees, soldiers moved without orders. The Reich that had once promised 1,000 years was now counting its final days. American forces advancing through central Germany expected resistance, ambushes, maybe desperate last stands. What they did not expect was silence. No gunfire, no shouting, no defense. Just empty roads, abandoned buildings, and the uneasy feeling that something was deeply wrong. The soldiers of the U.S. 4th Armored Division were moving through the countryside near a small German town when they noticed it. A smell. At first, no one could explain it. It wasn't smoke, it wasn't fuel, it wasn't decay from battlefields they were used to. It was heavier, sweeter, suffocating. The kind of smell that doesn't just enter your nose, it settles into your chest. Men who had fought across North Africa and Europe stopped talking. Some covered their mouths. Others retched on the roadside. War had taught them many things, but this smell taught them fear. General George's Patton was nearby when reports came in. Known for his confidence, aggression, and iron discipline, Patton had seen death on a scale few men ever would. At first, he assumed there was a rational explanation. Some industrial site, some livestock disposal area, something unpleasant but ordinary. Still, something bothered him. He ordered his officers to investigate immediately. What they found would reshape how the world understood the war. A short distance from the road, hidden behind fencing and watchtowers, stood a compound that did not appear on most maps. It was not a major city. It was not a military base. It was not defended. When American troops approached, they found no guards waiting for them. The men who had controlled the camp were gone. They had left in a hurry. Too much in a hurry. Inside the fences, the soldiers discovered human beings barely clinging to life. Men so thin their clothing hung like fabric on bone, faces hollowed by starvation, eyes that watched but did not react. These prisoners did not rush forward. They did not celebrate. Many were too weak to move at all. Some simply stood still, staring in disbelief. Others reached out with trembling hands, not to shake, not to hug, but to touch American vehicles, to touch metal, to touch reality. Behind buildings and sheds, the soldiers found what the guards had tried to erase. Bodies stacked without care. Corpses partially burned. Evidence hurriedly destroyed, but not destroyed enough. This was not chaos. This was design. As word spread, senior commanders were summoned. George Patton arrived first. Then others followed, including Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander. These men had planned invasions. They had sent millions into battle. They believed they understood the cost of war. Wrong. As Patton walked deeper into the camp, his demeanor changed. The posture of a conqueror faded. His usual sharp commands grew quiet. He stared at what lay in front of him not as a general, but as a human being forced to confront something beyond strategy or victory. In one area, bodies lay in groups, clearly executed. In another, evidence of systematic cruelty was impossible to ignore. Tools. Structures. Spaces designed not for imprisonment, but for suffering. Patton turned away. Moments later, the man known for toughness and brutality was physically sick. Eisenhower stood silently, his face drained of color. He did not speak much. He did not need to. This place did not require explanation. It required witnesses. The camp sat only a few miles from a quiet German town. A town with clean streets. A town with working shops. A town where civilians claimed ignorance. When Patton learned this, something inside him hardened. The smell alone, he argued, made ignorance impossible. He believed the town had chosen comfort over truth, silence over responsibility. And Patton had no patience for that. Without waiting for lengthy discussions or approvals, he issued a direct order. The town's leadership would be brought to the camp, not arrested, not tried, not punished. They would be made to see. Military police entered the town early the next day. They gathered the mayor, his wife, local officials, professionals, community figures. They were told to dress properly. They were told to come quietly. Trucks carried them away from their clean homes toward a place many had claimed did not exist. When they arrived, irritation turned to confusion. Confusion turned to silence. They were marched through the camp slowly, methodically. They were not allowed to turn away. They were not allowed to look down. They were shown the living. They were shown what had been done in their name, under their flag, beside their town. Some cried, some stared blankly, as if their minds refused to accept reality. Patton observed everything. He was not searching for apologies. He was searching for acknowledgement. Denial, he believed, was as dangerous as cruelty. The tour lasted hours. By the end, the civilians were no longer dressed neatly in spirit, even if their clothes remained clean. The camp clung to them its dust, its smell, its truth. They returned home in silence. For at least two of them, the burden proved unbearable. The mayor and his wife were later found dead. They had taken their own lives, leaving behind a message that spoke of shame and inability to continue living with what they had seen. Patton showed no visible emotion when informed. The camp had emptied him of pity. For Eisenhower, the experience triggered a different response. He feared the future, feared denial. He feared that once the war ended, once emotions cooled, people would claim exaggeration, propaganda, or fabrication. So he issued orders that went far beyond military necessity. Cameras were brought in, reporters were summoned, soldiers were marched through the camp in massive numbers. Everything was documented. Eisenhower wanted proof so overwhelming that history itself could not erase it. Before this moment, many soldiers believed they were fighting for territory, politics, alliances. Afterward, they understood they were fighting for humanity. Ohrdruf was not the largest camp. It was not the deadliest. But it was the first many Americans saw. And once seen, it changed everything. George S. Patton is often remembered as a warrior obsessed with battle. But in that moment, his most lasting act was not military. It was moral. He refused to allow ignorance to survive. He forced truth into the open ugly, undeniable, unforgettable. And that is what Patton made German civilians do when he found the first camp.